610 AM, 102 FM.
I listen, therefore I know.
Online at kvnutalk.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
I listen on the app.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Logan Dental Associates. Logan Mayor Holly Daines returned to KVNU's For the People program this past Wednesday for her monthly Speak to the Mayor hour. She said there are more events planned as the city transitions into late November. She said that there are some other opportunities as well, other events on the calendar. You can go to loganutah.org. Also, the mayor had an opportunity to recently talk to legislators about an issue that has been an ongoing problem, the impasse with Union Pacific concerning the 1400 North, 600 West intersection.
So when the at-grade agreement was finally received, it included a new paragraph requiring Logan to pay an annual maintenance fee of over $11,000 per intersection in perpetuity that could be increased annually at UP's sole discretion with no cap. And we had to pay that on every railroad crossing in the city.
Sure.
So this is in direct conflict with current state rules and code. So we requested the paragraph be removed from the agreement, and UP refused.
In addition, 4.5 months ago, the railroad got a judge to demand that the traffic lights at the 1400 North, 600 West intersection be removed. So it is now again a four-way stop, which significantly slows traffic. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather for tonight. Clear but hazy conditions. Low tonight, overnight, 15 to 20 degrees. It was 12 this morning. And then hazy sunshine tomorrow, around 40 for the high. There is a slight chance of snow on Wednesday morning, and the high temperature around 40 degrees. We managed to make it to 41. And right now we have 34 degrees at KVNU. Do you have health benefits that need used before the end of the year? Make your appointment now with Logan Dental Associates in Logan and Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond. Utilize your benefits in the best care possible without pain or discomfort. Call today for your appointment with Doctors Taylor, Larson, Harris, or Preby.
So many times at the end of the year we hear, wow, had I known, I would have come in sooner. Anyway, can we get it done before the end of the year? Hi, it's Dr. Brandon Preby from Logan Dental Associates and Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond. We want to help you utilize your benefits and get the best care possible without pain or discomfort and make it affordable. Often insurance or health savings is part of that plan. Please call today for your appointment with Dr. Taylor, Larson, Harris, or Preby. Let's get you the care you need before the end of the year. Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond or Logan Dental Associates in Logan.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. An 18-year-old is dead after reportedly speeding through Bountiful with the vehicle's headlights off, according to police. The incident happened around 9:15 Friday evening, according to a statement from the Woods Cross Police Department posted to its social media. A Woods Cross police officer reportedly witnessed a red vehicle driving in the nighttime hours without the headlights on. The officer reported the car was traveling at speeds approaching 100 miles per hour. The car then hit a curb, causing it to lose one of its back tires. The teen driver lost control of the vehicle and crashed into a car traveling south on 500 West. Both drivers were transported to the hospital, where the 18-year-old driver of the speeding vehicle later died. The second driver was transported in serious condition. Police reported the individual was in stable condition at the hospital on Saturday. Jordan Clarkson scored 28 points, including 8 straight in the final 148, and the Utah Jazz had a 118-113 victory over the Portland Trailblazers Saturday night in Portland. Malik Beasley had 29 points off the bench to help the Jazz take the Western Conference lead at 12 games to 6. KVNU News Time is 5:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Local news and the best talk. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Dr. Josh Red, chiropractic physician, explains how Red River Health and Wellness can help you.
If you have low thyroid and you're taking thyroid medication, the biggest question you should ask yourself is what's causing my low thyroid specifically? If you don't know the answer to that question, it's important to call us. At Red River, we identified triggers that will cause the low thyroid to begin with. One of the most common causes of low thyroid is a disease called Hashimoto's disease. This is an autoimmune disease that is a lot more complicated than just a primary thyroid issue. This is why people will be on thyroid hormone but still feel little to no improvement because nothing's being done to address the bigger, more complicated problem, which is Hashimoto's. If you have low thyroid or you have an autoimmune disease and you're on medication and still don't feel well, call Red River.
Schedule your appointment today at 855-55-RIVER. Red River Health and Wellness with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
Hi, this is James with White Pine Funerals. We're excited to host our annual holiday concert featuring a choir and musical ensemble by Jay Richards. All are welcome to attend free of charge. We extend a special invitation to anyone who is missing a loved one this holiday season. Food donations are encouraged at the door for the Cash Food Pantry. Back-to-back performances will take place at White Pine on Thursday, December 1st at 7 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. That's Thursday, December 1st at 7 p.m. or 8:30 p.m.
This is Mark with Roof Rescue. Most of us don't think about our roofs very often until you see shingles on the ground or water drips through your ceiling. Keep your roof in tip-top shape to protect your home, your biggest investment. Roof Rescue uses only the highest quality materials with experienced workmanship guaranteed to last. Even if you were denied by your insurance company the first time, a free re-evaluation can be made. Visit roofrescueusa.com to schedule your free consultation in Cache Valley and surrounding areas. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People, hour 2 of today's show. Monday, still, November 21st. I'm Jason Williams. We had a packed first hour, so we're going to be getting to headlines from over the weekend with smooth jazz in just a bit here. But I wanted to just touch on this. Everyone's following this story, and we have gotten a lot of questions from listeners wanting to know if we've heard any more. And no, still in the tragic story of the murder investigation happening at the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho. Still no suspect and no murder weapon. But we'll keep you posted as we hear more. And, of course, coverage of this at CacheValleyDaily.com. Just a really, really strange story around all of this. But the investigation continues. So just a quick update on that. Of course, over the weekend, tragic headlines out of Colorado, mass shooting at a Colorado LGBTQ club. And one of the spotlights of this tragic story, 5 dead and now up to 25 wounded as a total count has come in from local hospitals in the area. But part of the story that is bubbling up and getting a lot of attention on social media has been the 2 heroic patrons of this bar. One that is believed to have had military service actually subdued this individual, and authorities are saying without that, the death toll would have been much higher. Coverage of that, again, at CacheValleyDaily.com. So 2 of the biggest headlines over the weekend. For those out there who are curious, it is time to satisfy all of your curiosity with headlines and smooth jazz. Things have been so heated, we're hoping to just kind of cool the temperature down when it comes to finding out what's going on in the world around you. So fewer of us are walking around with scowls and frowns on our faces. Think Mr. Rogers, but the headlines, if the two could ever go together. Got a weird long COVID symptom? You are far from alone. As we head into the 3rd pandemic winter, most people all too familiar with the signs of COVID-19. And what we're learning as time passes, that though the symptoms of COVID-19 and its many multiple variants that we're now dealing with are pretty known. But what isn't known exactly why so many people are experiencing what is known as long COVID. This is basically the symptoms have gone, the virus has passed, and yet something that a person didn't have before now lingers. I have some family members actually dealing with this. One relative who has a form of asthma that takes a very aggressive pitch when it sets in her body, something she'd never dealt with before. And her doctors are still trying to figure that out. But Science News Daily, which is a great kind of random science website, goes through, it's not focused on one particular science. They have a story today talking about something you may not have heard of. Have you heard of furry tongue? Well, this is something that can happen to someone who hasn't had COVID-19, but doctors throughout the country and the world are noticing that those who have had COVID-19 are getting this at a much higher rate than has ever been traditional. And what furry tongue is, basically the cells of your tongue don't slough off like they're supposed to, and so literally the tongue inside a person's mouth grows a skin, an extra skin, a shield, if you will. Gross, one, and two, it is actually pretty serious and can lead to malnutrition because food no longer tastes like anything. You've probably heard of hair loss and COVID toe. That's another one that is commonly known. But there are some others out there. COVID eye. This is one I'd never heard of. COVID eye is actually where this is widely reported in the British press, but it's temporary blindness. They're calling it COVID eye. It's usually shortly after a person has had the virus that this develops, but an individual loses vision in one eye less than a week after testing positive for COVID-19. And doctors, the technical name for this is orbital cellulitis, and it's a bacterial infection in the eye socket. It is highly treatable, but it must be treated quickly to do any good. And so close attention being paid to that as it is more frequent now that COVID is a part of our lives. It's not always clear, of course, that COVID-19 is the actual culprit. Doctors base this on when certain things set in for a person. And, of course, it's possible it just was coincidence that something started right after they had COVID-19. The doctor said the sheer scale of those coincidences would basically be statistically impossible to believe that there wasn't a connection. The number of these, by the way, in the United States alone, 98 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and close to 5 million confirmed cases of some form of long COVID. One to watch out for, doctors say, though, one of the more serious ones that can happen, actually, is swelling of the tongue and digits. This is more serious, doctors say, because swelling of any kind is always a sign that something probably more serious is going on in your body. So if you get COVID-19 and experience swelling afterward, do something about that. Visit a doctor as soon as possible, authorities say, because that swelling is probably a sign that there is something else going on within your body that is worth having a doctor take a look at. Kind of a horrifying headline that might not seem so horrifying to many until you start to connect all the dots. The Deseret News today with a story, America is barreling toward a child care cliff. Basics of the story, without some kind of federal assistance, states are not going to be able to make this happen, and child care might become something like a luxury good, which could have huge economic ramifications. In fact, some estimates say a loss or a collapse of the child care industry could actually lead to a near 30% reduction within a week of our workforce. The sector has lost already, the child care sector itself has lost 100,000 workers from 2019, with the pandemic triggering most of those. Thousands of programs have closed, including many here in Utah. And 92% of childcare centers relied on pandemic grants through federal rescue plans to keep their doors open. And those are ending in 2023 or at the latest 2024. So Deseret News reporting on some surveying that's been done when it comes to what Americans want to see, and then contrasting that with what lawmakers at the state level and the federal level are doing, and basically painting a picture of, what people would like to see happen isn't happening at the federal or the state level. Translating that, people want more childcare options. States aren't giving it to them. Congress isn't funding them. And everyone's pointing at this cliff saying, it's right there. Nearly every state's desperate attempt to staunch the bleeding, the Deseret News reports, is deeply entwined with this federal aid, meaning that when that expiring federal aid dries up, the state's assistance to these programs and industry also do. States have been handing out bonuses, for example. Alabama offered a $3,000 quarterly bonus for full-time staff to work in child care. Utah gave out $2,000 bonuses just earlier this year. But again, that is all federally funded and has not been renewed by Congress. Deseret News says the data shows the issue cannot wait until 2024 when a lot of this finally dries up. It requires a federal and a state solution sooner than that. Child care is expensive and also extremely necessary for a good chunk of our workforce one way or another. Check it out. It is a lengthy report on this survey that's done that covers everything from childcare's role in reducing child poverty by allowing parents to work more or at all in some cases, and also how this all got to be such a fragile industry in the first place. It's a brilliantly written piece of journalism that is honestly kind of scary when you think about it. Check it out. Perspective, America barreling towards a child care cliff in the Deseret News today. I've linked to that on our Facebook page. And there are your headlines and smooth jazz. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. The Black Friday sale is in full swing. Sleep and saving money have got to be on the top of your list for this sale. The Black Friday sale is the biggest sale of the year. Save on the world's two best beds. $1,000 off on IntelliBed and up to $500 on Tempur-Pedic. Truckloads of beds have arrived in stock, ready for you to sleep better tonight. Twin beds, guest beds, even a $600 Sealy Posturepedic. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally? Up to 6 years, no interest financing. The Black Friday sale, the biggest sale of the year, only at My Mattress.
Talking to your kids about the dangers of vaping can be hard. Getting them to listen to hot gossip is easy. So here's some drama you could share with your kid. Dude, did you hear about Cassie and Jake? No, but did you hear that vaping can cause irreversible lung damage and nicotine affects brain development? Nuh-uh. You don't need to gossip if you want to have an open conversation about vaping. So if you want to get tips on when and how to talk to your kids, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
It was a normal day.
He was in some minor accident, a fender bender.
And I had this impulse to call him, but I didn't because I thought I could call him later that week.
He abandoned the car, he came home, and he shot himself without ever talking to anyone.
When I came home that night and I found her, they told me that she had shot herself, and I couldn't believe it.
I asked if he was okay.
Taking a gun into your house for protection is a terrible myth.
Once you pull that trigger, that's it. There is no coming back.
65 Americans a day die by gun suicide. Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammunition. Help stop suicide. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Got some listeners after that last segment sending me their own long COVID stories, and man, folks, I'm sorry in advance. We've got to take just a moment here from our regularly scheduled programming because a very special guest has walked into the studio. He doesn't want to go on the air. He's shy. He's never been on the radio before.
Well, he shouldn't have sat down right by a microphone then.
That's right. I'm kidding. It's really one of my favorite people, and I miss it. So it's John Russell from Full Court Press fame and Aggie Call fame and what other fame? That one mugshot that you don't want anybody to know about.
I'm a legend in my own mind.
Legend in your own mind.
So,
I miss you guys following us. For listeners who don't know, Full Court Press used to follow For the People every day except for June and July of the year when they'd take a little hiatus to catch their breath. And then when the Fan launched, 106.9, they moved to the studio next door, so I can watch them through the glass here every day, 4 to 6. But that means they're on the same time I'm on. I don't get to chat with them and hear the latest on sports gossip and controversy and all of that. But you were a staple of the show for years. Still a sports voice here on the radio group's airwaves on a regular basis. And just miss you guys.
Well, thank you.
Could you stop by every day at 6 and just talk to me for 5 minutes?
Sure. The sad thing is, like you said, the crew next door, they're next door, but they don't even look at you. They don't even acknowledge you.
No.
And what you don't know is we really didn't listen to you either. But even when we were right after you, it was like, Jason, there he goes. No, I don't miss being after you for the one reason. You just let us have it constantly that we didn't have enough hockey coverage.
I was always complaining about that.
That was nothing. You didn't care about anything else.
Although Eric and Jason did have Titan and a couple others in the last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I was excited to see that, but I've now started to complain about not enough high school lacrosse coverage.
Okay.
On Full Court Press.
You got a thing going with the guys missing teeth and noses.
Yeah, like the more violent games.
Little hostile.
No, I didn't catch the whole thing, but I caught the last few minutes of a pretty heated lacrosse game a couple of years ago. Have you ever watched? Man,
yeah,
they are scrappy. That's a sport.
It's a great game, and I grew up back east, so I grew up with lacrosse. So I had a lot of friends. I never played. I'm a little soft. I'm not going to deny it. I'm just soft for the game, but very, very big back east, and it always surprised me that it didn't take up here, but it's really kind of taken over, and it's a great game, and it's fast. It's a really quick game that you have to pay attention.
It's everything soccer could be. But is it? No offense to World Cup fans. I know.
Wrong time to be bringing that
I know,
up.
right?
You are wrong time
Poor
to bring
Qatar,
it up.
you think about that. Yeah. They've got so much guff, which they deserve for the human rights abuses and things like that in the lead up to this. And then opening night, shellacked.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's good. That's the only thing.
We're the hosts, and we just got whipped.
But I have to wonder, how many little conversations were had with the Ecuadorian team going 2-0. 2-0's good enough. Yeah, don't pile it on. We know you can.
We don't want to make this that obvious.
We would like to leave the country safely. But you know what? The World Cup, it's such a great thing. And it really is an opportunity for a month that the world does kind of come together.
Yeah.
You've got some of your hooligans from some of your European countries that they're a little out of control. But
surprisingly, it's usually the UK.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say it. I didn't know how many British listeners we have here.
None now.
But that was it. No, they're sitting there going, nodding there, and going, oh yeah.
They specialize in post-game street brawls.
Yeah.
That's. No, the World Cup is fun, and I follow closely, but I joke because it at times is actually hard to watch an entire soccer game.
Sure.
Because it's always moving. It doesn't have that problem the NFL has where they pause every 11 minutes or so, or every 3 minutes for a commercial. But it's always moving. There's always action, but but it's just kind of like they move a few inches this way, then they move a few inches that way, and no one scores. Well, there's never a score in soccer.
Unless you're a big fan, and I played soccer for quite a while. That was my game.
It's a fun game to play.
And you appreciate it when you've played it, but it's one of those things that if you've not, you don't get it. But I get a question for you is that, I don't know if you've noticed, there's a little turmoil in the world right now.
It appears to be.
I listen to you, but you're always listening to that smooth jazz.
That's why we're doing the smooth jazz headlines now. I watched this election play out, and I'm like, man, people are tense.
Yeah.
And so, that's our tiny contribution to dialing down the heat a little bit.
I've driven off the road a couple times listening to you. I don't know if it was the jazz or you.
I do worry about that. The combination of
one
the
of those two.
Me and smooth jazz, and we're going to have report Logan City Police calling us.
They did.
Please stop.
No, they pulled me over and said, "Sir, have you been drinking?" I said, "No, I'm listening to Jason." And
I just nodded off for a second.
And they're like, "Oh, well, completely understandable. Carry on." What do we do? So, with the World Cup, again, it's the Olympics have always been this way where, just for a period of time, everybody's excited and they
puts everything aside, right?
They do. Is that going to happen with this World Cup?
I don't know. The lead up to would say no. Mm-hmm. Some of the controversy around Qatar and Budweiser at this point, man, they're probably not ready to let this go. That country, they kind of rolled them the last few days, or the 2 days before opening game. But I don't know, John. Honestly, like I look at what's happening in politics around the election, just the average news day. The number of people I've spoken to who have said they can't watch the news anymore.
Yeah,
they can't. It upsets them. It worries them. The anxiety's too high. And you're right. We used to have these things that just kind of everybody, this global competition for the World Cup, the Olympics themselves, and it used to just everybody set everything aside. And I always thought it was a little weird as a kid too, because I grew up. I'm old enough to remember when the Cold War was I didn't know what it was. I wasn't old enough to understand it, but that's all anyone was talking about. And then these same countries that were in this decades long Cold War would just go ice skate together.
And you're wondering how this is happening.
Wait a minute. Can't those two people just talk and go back with some kind of peace treaty?
And instead, all we've got is Nancy Kerrigan and then Tanya Harding. It's U.S. on U.S. crime. What's going on here? Meanwhile, you've got Ukrainians and Russians, and they're happy and lovey-dovey. And, Tanya Harding's trying to shank poor Nancy.
That was one of the more violent episodes in ice skating in our history.
But no, I agree with you, and I think that's the unfortunate thing is that it was something where you could sit back, and I remember a few Winter Olympics ago where there was a woman from Africa ice skating. Okay, let that sink in a little bit. African ice skating, and she was better than I was, but to be honest, she was not good at all.
Sure.
But the incredible joy that you saw her in her face as she was out there skating for her country, and she fell down like 3 or 4 times, and just you could tell she wasn't good. And that is what we need. And I was hoping that we would see that a little bit in the World Cup, and I'm with you. I don't think we're going to see that, which is unfortunate. But for those that have turned the TV off now, I'm not going right or left on this.
Sure.
Watch Herschel Walker. He's going to get his own comedy show after this thing, And
with that little police badge,
Herschel Walker.
I felt so bad.
Herschel
for him.
and the tree stump. Great new satire coming on. We get ready for it.
This is your dad coming out in your bloodstream here.
Yeah.
What does he think about all this? You talk. So for those who don't know, John's dad is a pretty famous political satirist, doing it with a musical flair for years. He's been here on the show a couple of times. When you talk to him, does it scare him seeing how dialed up everything is out here?
It's funny. And for those, he's still writing. He stopped touring just as the years have gone on. But go to markrussell.net, and he posts there pretty regularly. But on one hand, his big joke is he loves the government because people ask him, do you have any writers? And he says, yeah, I've got 535 on Capitol Hill.
Every member of Congress.
They're the ones that take care of him. And so on one hand, he sees things that come out and he sees the humor in that and he appreciates that. But he has his concerns, as far as what the direction of the country is going. And I'm not going to speak entirely for him because I'm still waiting for the monthly check that I get from him.
That's right.
So I don't want to dismiss that.
The keep quiet money.
Keep quiet money.
I think is what
and
he
might be
it.
listening to the stream.
Oh, he had a little chip implanted when I was younger, and there's no doubt.
Tracks your whereabouts. Right now, he's looking at that, going, "He's in a radio studio. This can't be good."
He's ripping the check up as we speak. I can't even tell that joke. Kids today know what's a check? I don't know what that is. But
it's like Venmo, except
thank you.
But made out of paper.
Yeah.
Well, what's paper? That's the next question. But ultimately, and that's the thing when you look at a lot of these comedians, and it goes not only from my dad, but I think if you look at guys like, all the great political satirists, there's still a concern because this still is the greatest country. And the fact is that if he lived in Russia, I would have not seen him for 30 years. Yeah. That would have been it.
He'd still be serving that prison sentence for cracking that joke.
Swinging that anvil.
Yeah.
And it really is, it comes down to there's a concern and you need to be able to look at the other party and laugh at them, but laugh at yourself. And that was the one thing I asked him one time. I said, what is off limits?
Yeah.
And he said, really, about anything is there's nothing that's really off limits as long as you can look at the humor and everything. Because for the most part, there is humor in everything.
Yeah.
As you know well, I lost my oldest son to cancer.
Yeah.
Horrible thing. We miss him every day. But there were things that he said about his cancer that would make you roll off the floor, off your chair.
Oh, sure.
And you've got to be able to do that. And I think that's the problem is today, people aren't really willing to sit down and be able to look at themselves and say, that is kind of funny.
Yeah.
It doesn't change my viewpoint, but it's still funny.
No, you have to. I have friends on the left, and I've said to them, Trump could be kind of funny sometimes. And they lose. What?
Yeah.
There is nothing funny about it. No. When he got in that UPS truck and beeped that horn, that was funny.
Yeah. When Michael Dukakis, and now I can tell you this because you get it, some of our listeners, but when he was in that tank, I mean, that was worth gold. As a matter of fact, I think that bought my dad a car, right? That one thing right there was the Chrysler.
I'm pretty sure there were 2 decades of political cartoons with that image in it. Michael Dukakis in that tank looking like a complete fool.
Yeah.
Howard Dean and the Yarg moment, still one of my favorites. Yeah, you have to be able to laugh at some of this stuff. And I get a little frustrated, John, honestly, because we're talking a lot these days about misinformation and, people like, it's Facebook needs to deal with it, Twitter needs to deal with it, Instagram, all of them need to deal with it in some way. And yet what kind of seems to be missing from the whole thing, and I think this is the same with the heat in politics right now, people are sharing this stuff. We, as users, are sharing it. Where's the responsibility on the user to say, like if it's patriotnews1.net, maybe it's not a legitimate news source, or if it's something completely hateful and dehumanizing to another person and you share it, you're contributing to this. So I feel like that's missing a little bit. And it reminds me of something your dad said when he was here in the studio, where he said, I asked him the same question, is anything off limits to you? And he said, you can make anything funny as long as you do it responsibly and watch who it is you're punching.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool to hear. But John, I'm glad you have a few minutes to stop by. Are they going to let you on over there? Or
No. I just come around
they kicked you out?
Hope somebody will take pity and pass me a mite, and I can move on.
Let's. You know what? Well, Bill does the news. Let's storm their studio.
No. They're hostile.
It's
over
about
there.
time.
So,
we'll put some signs up in the window.
That might work.
Get them to pause on air a little bit. John Russell, our guest here unexpectedly. Always great to have him in, though. And you mentioned the website. What was that again? It was
markrussell.net.
.net. Okay. I've got it bookmarked here, and for listeners, I'll share it to our Facebook page. Some funny stuff and a good guy. On the other side, if you want to stick around, well, you got your choice. You could either leave before he joins us or stick around and say hi. Not really. But Craig Hislop on the other side.
I'm out of here. As a matter of fact, I don't see, I'm just diving under the desk right now.
I don't blame you.
Don't tell him
I try to do it every time, too. Yeah, that guy, Craig Hislop on the other side of the news. USU is part of an international space mission to study the ionosphere. And the potential ramifications of this are huge. Craig Hislop with the details after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:40. The news brought to you by Logan Extermination. Friends and family gathered this afternoon to remember one of the 4 University of Idaho students who were stabbed to death in their home early on November 13th. Police in the college town of Moscow, Idaho, have yet to identify a suspect in the slayings. The memorial service for Ethan Chapin was held this afternoon in Mount Vernon, Washington, where he attended high school. He was one of a set of triplets. All 3 siblings enrolled in the University of Idaho last August. On Sunday, law enforcement officers investigating the deaths asked for patience after a week has passed with no arrests. 51-year-old Matthew Alex Kirkman is accused of following 2 female students into Highland High School in Salt Lake and said he was there to, quote, hurt kids, end of quote. That's according to court records alleging this happened on Thursday. Police believe Kirkham has a possible mental health issue and has a violent history of manslaughter. A Salt Lake City School District spokesperson said Kirkham made it onto several campuses on Thursday, and his picture was circulated to several schools to be on the lookout for him. At Highland, Kirkham is accused of walking through the parking lot when he followed 2 female students inside the building. Once inside, he's accused of saying that he was there to hurt kids. Court records indicate the students Kirkham was following walked straight to an administrator who confronted him and escorted him out of the building. A school district spokesperson said Kirkham is banned from all district campuses. And Idaho lawmakers are planning to bring forward potential new laws in the upcoming legislative session intended to limit state investments or contracts with companies that factor in such things as climate change and workers' rights into their business practices. Republican Representative Barbara Ehart said in a presentation to the Federalism Committee today that draft legislation is being worked on involving ESG investing. That's a fast-growing investment movement aimed at increasing financial returns by considering environmental, social, and corporate governance issues when deciding where to invest pension and other public funds. Conservative lawmakers tend to view the strategy with suspicion. Ehart said that draft legislation is looking at contracts in financial services. KVNU News Time is 5:43.
Even though the weather's grown colder, you still have time to have your fruit trees pruned. Logan Extermination says your trees need to be trimmed back in order to achieve success next year. And this is the first step to a bountiful harvest. However, you can do more bad than good if you don't know what you're doing. Save the headache and call Logan Extermination today and get a jump on tree pruning. Prices will vary depending on your needs. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies, hazy conditions, low 15 to 20, sunny but hazy around 40 on Tuesday. Slight chance of snow Wednesday morning, mostly cloudy around 40 degrees. It's been to 38, right now it's 31 at KVNU. KVNU weather is brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Contact their Cache Valley team to protect what's yours at northernsteelbuilding.com. Value from concept to construction. Call 435-677-7300. For more details on these and other stories, visit cachevalleydaily.com.
Listen to why locals love Anderson's Seed and Garden.
Mark is always so helpful and so kind, answers any questions. Their staff is helpful. They're so good to help you. They put lights on my house.
There's so many choices, it's hard to decide what to get. They're always very helpful, and anything you want to get, they'll be happy to get it for you.
If you haven't been to Anderson's for Christmas, you're missing out. Anderson's Seed and Garden, Center Street, Logan.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
This message is for Karina, our mom who finished her high school diploma at age 28. Hi, Mom. It's Emmettith and Nicholas. Congratulations on getting your diploma. You worked so hard and have taught us so much. We love you.
When you graduate, they graduate. Finish your high school diploma for you and for them. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy has a bit of a math problem in his bid to be Speaker. How many skeptics can he win over? Also, a look at where gas prices are headed before tens of millions hit the road for the holiday weekend. And the acceptable and less acceptable ways to pronounce the country where the World Cup is being held. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Thanks again to John Russell for stopping by after they kicked him out of the studio at Full Court Press, meeting guys over there. Always good to talk with him. And again, check out markrussell.net if you want to see some funny political satire being done by John's dad. And he's been a guest here on the show over the years. We'll see if we can get him back, talk about how weird our politics are right now. Shifting gears, though, a bit to focus on Utah State University, because this is just really cool. USU is leading an international space mission to study the ionosphere, but how they're doing it and how much of this is being built in Cache Valley. Anyway, it's just a really cool story. It's right in our own backyard. And with the details, KVNU's resident gumshoe, Craig Hislop.
Well, thank you, Jason. For years, researchers have tried to determine why GPS signals in regions near the Amazon are so unreliable. They now know that it's because of plasma bubbles in space. The next question, then, is why do these bubbles form in the ionosphere over the equator? To find out, next week, NASA is going to deploy a satellite from the International Space Station. It contains scientific instruments developed by Utah State University and its collaborators. Charles Swenson is a USU professor of electrical and computer engineering who's worked with Brazilian scientists for years developing the satellite and researching answers to why this area of the globe is affected by such space weather phenomenon. And Dr. Swenson joins us. As it stands now, Charles, how much do we know about why these bubbles form out there in space?
Well, we know a bit about why they're triggered, but there are also a number of questions that we don't understand. A lot of it has to do with the magnetic field of the Earth and its orientation relative to the surface of the Earth. When you get down to the equator of the Earth, the magnetic field of the Earth is horizontal to the surface of the Earth, and that's the region where these bubbles can form. But the magnetic field of the Earth is not, it's different as you go around the Earth at different latitudes. It's not quite the same at every location. And Brazil is a unique area where the field kind of twists and goes from the below the equator of the Earth to above the equator of the Earth. There's kind of a kink in the magnetic field. And And bubbles form there, it seems, more frequently than other places, and we don't understand why.
So radio waves are traveling across these bubbles, and obviously the signals are become distorted then, right?
Yeah, let me put it to you this way. Think about air, which is clear, and water, which is clear, and you can see through both. But if you blow air through some water, like in a swimming pool, and you're trying to see down to the bottom, once you have a whole bunch of bubbles, you can't see anymore. And that's exactly what goes on with the ionosphere. The ionosphere is transparent to radio waves mostly, and the air is transparent to radio waves. And when we start to blow bubbles, if you will, through the ionosphere, these bubbles become opaque, and the radio waves can't get through the ionosphere in the same way that light can't get through water with lots of air bubbles in it.
So what are you asking this satellite to do to help you understand all of these conditions?
Well, there's kind of two parts to it. One is we are using measurements at the location of the satellite as it goes around the Earth, and particularly when it gets down near the equator of the Earth, to make measurements of the density of the Earth's ionosphere, and also in the motion, whether it's moving up or down. Think of it as the winds in the Earth's ionosphere. Both of those things contribute. And we know that whatever's going on in the ionosphere just around sunset determines whether later in the evening, around, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, whether these bubbles will start to rip up from the bottom and up through the ionosphere and make it more opaque to radio waves. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make measurements at different locations at different longitudes around the Earth, and try and understand the preconditions, what the winds are and what the density is and what the wiggles on the bottom of the ionosphere are that might be the reason why these bubbles start.
And we're talking to Charles Swenson, USU professor, who's been involved in this work that I described earlier for a while. Now, the developing of the satellite, first of all, tell us a little bit about that. Apparently, you obviously had a hand in that.
Yes, this has been an interesting ride for me because it's been an awful lot more about international relations than about science. And the idea is that the United States does a lot of space missions jointly with Europe and the European Space Agency, and with Japan and the Japanese Space Agency. And the discussion was being had here in the United States at fairly high levels. Why don't we have more missions going with our neighbors down in South America, with Brazil and other countries? And what can we do to make that happen? About 5 years ago, the Department of Defense encouraged a set of workshops down in Brazil to say, what are the space weather effects that are important to Brazil that maybe the United States might be able to work with Brazil in studying? And what came out of it is, well, why don't we put together a small satellite called a CubeSat? Brazil will build the CubeSat. The United States will provide the various instruments for measuring the space weather effects, and thus was born the SPORT mission. But it's taken years to work through the various agreements at the international level to allow this to happen, and it's been a fantastic diplomacy activity between the two countries.
So here we are, the SPORT CubeSat mission, now I'm reading from the information that was sent to me, is scheduled to launch no earlier than November 21st. When, in fact, will that happen?
Well, so I am going to go out to Florida here on Sunday, and the coming Monday is when the launch is scheduled. It's scheduled to go on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket that's taking resupply equipment and food and stuff up to the International Space Station for the astronauts, and the spacecraft is going up with that equipment and food and supplies to the International Space Station. And then in the next week, after it's gotten up to the space station, the astronauts on the International Space Station will take it and carry it over to the airlock and put it in the airlock and put it outside the space station and use the robotic arm to pick up the container that houses the spacecraft and another spacecraft, actually, 2 of them are in there, and then it'll point it in the appropriate direction and release them out into space. And then the mission will begin, and our colleagues in Brazil will begin checking out the spacecraft.
How long does all that take till you start to reap information and so forth?
Well, we figure that it'll take probably a week. They've kind of indicated it'll take about a week before they actually release the sport spacecraft into space. And then after that, there'll be a checkout. And it usually takes about a month-ish to check out the instruments on the spacecraft and the spacecraft itself and make sure that all the command links are working and all the subsystems are working. And then the science mission will begin in earnest over the next year. We need to collect data for about a year to really address the science questions that we have proposed.
Well, we all know the involvement of our university in space, and I thought this was a fascinating story when I read about it, Charles, and you've been very good on rather short notice to help us understand it, so thank you for that.
You are welcome. It's been fun.
Let's get back to Jason and to Bill now.
Thank you, Craig. And again, I say it all the time, this stuff is happening right in our own backyard. That is so cool. Can't wait to see where this one turns out, actually, because the results of this research are going to make a pretty big difference if they see what they expect to see. So, again, more on this at cachevalleydaily.com. Coming up, we'll have an update for you on the story of vandalism at the Logan Tabernacle and an update on, the brief and quick restoration that took place after a vandal and a spray paint can did some damage over the weekend. That's next here on For the People.
Hi, this is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Humana is offering Medicare Advantage plans in our area. Come learn about Humana's benefits for 2023 at our free seminar. Call 752-9493 for details or go to our website, lssins.com, for a meeting schedule. If you were happy with Humana in the past, you are going to want to see their benefits now. Call 752-9493. For accommodations of persons with special needs at meetings, please call 752-9493.
Hey golfers, Black Friday at Birch Creek is going on now. Punch passes, $150. All remaining golf shoes and clothing, half off. Golf hats, $15. A limited number of $150 punch passes will be sold. The entire pro shop is on sale. So for your golfer, I invite you to choose Birch Creek's Black Friday sale going on now. That's Birch Creek Golf Course in Smithfield.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. You may have seen the story earlier today at cachevalleydaily.com and some good news to wrap up your news day here on For the People. Law enforcement investigating after someone over the weekend spray painted profanity and vulgar pictures on the double doors of the currently under renovation Logan Tabernacle. They jumped the fence there, spray painted F. Joseph Smith, but not just the F on the door, and then some not so witty sketches to go along with that. They believe it occurred between Saturday night and Sunday morning. It was first reported at least Sunday morning. And Logan City Police Captain Curtis Hooley told CachevalleyDaily.com, so we'll feel right, that an area leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints reported the graffiti around 10 a.m. Sunday morning. The suspect appeared to have used spray paint to write the F. Joseph Smith message on the front doors, with 3 obscene pictures painted above the doorway. Again, the tabernacle currently closed for renovation, and they've already done the repairs. CachevalleyDaily.com photo the front doors of the Tabernacle days after the suspects spray painted the doors, already back to their original white. So glad to see that gone. Don't understand why people do stuff like this. I always chalk it up to a lack of hobbies. But if you'd like to follow the story as the investigation continues, CacheValleyDaily.com.